G'day everyone, welcome back to the Perkins Engineering YouTube channel. This episode, getting stuck straight into it, I want to show you how the anti-roll bar systems work in the various racing cars we've got here in the shop. In particular how the cockpit adjustment works. And you're probably wondering, why am I holding a knife? Well, I find a knife is the best way to sort of show you how an adjustable anti-roll bar blade can work. First of all, what is an anti-roll bar? Well, it's basically as basic as it sounds. It's a torsion bar, a roll bar used across the front suspension and then the rear suspension. They don't sort of work from front down the side of the car, if that makes sense. So the front anti-roll bar combines the front suspension points, if you like, and limits the body roll across the front of the car, and then likewise at the rear of the car. It typically picks up off the diff housing and then a fixed point on the chassis, and it's a bar that's used and it needs to twist against that tube to limit the body roll, and then that becomes a very sensitive tuning tool on a race car. A lot of road cars that have anti-roll bars are typically a brace. You might see the top shock points held together with just a steel brace, and that's a form of anti-roll bar, but very little adjustment. So an anti-roll bar on a race car, it utilizes what we call blades and an anti-roll bar tube. So basically you've got the fixed point at the chassis connected to the rolling point, so for the diff housing for example, and its body roll creates the blades to literally try and twist the tube. So the size of the tube becomes very important. Obviously the bigger, thicker the tube, the stiffer the anti-roll bar actually is. But then the way it actually connects to the tube is through a blade. So, for example, if I hold this knife flat like that and I try and bend it, you see how I can get a lot of flex through this flat section. But then if it's now moved to a stiffer position and I try and bend it, I actually can't do it. And that's exactly how the anti-roll bar blade works. So this angle where it's deflecting this way is what we would consider soft blade position, and then when it's long ways like that, that's what we call the stiff position, because it's harder to move, and then that deflects through that blade into the tube. So the stiffer the bar is, the less roll you get through the anti-roll bar tube. Let's go and have a look at how it all works in a race car so it all makes a bit more sense. Okay, we're under the back of the 2003 car looking at the rear sway bar. So the bar is mounted to the chassis. You can see that chassis mount to the rear chassis rail. This is the roll bar tube. That's the blade connected to the diff housing through a drop link. So this is what we would call a fixed blade. That is adjustable at the top. You can see it's got a range of adjustment there by basically pulling out that bolt, the little socket head cap screw bolt, and moving the blade adjustment. So there's 5 adjustments there, currently full soft, and then you would undo that bolt, move it across here, so you go stiffer, 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 and this one would be full stiff. That would rotate the blade around. Now the torsion comes from this tube here. So the adjustable section is right here. A cable that runs back up into the cockpit, joins to a lever, and then that connects to the top of the blade, which is currently at a 45-degree position, so somewhere between full stiff and full soft. Now, what I'll do is jump in the car and move that blade so you can see how it works in the cabin. Full stiff. Back to the center. If we go over to the HRT Car of the Future car and have a look at the front anti-roll bar, it's a little bit different. I mean, the principles are still the same, except it's got a lot shorter blades. The bar is still mounted to the chassis at the front, and then it goes off a drop link here, which then marries up to a rocker and then connects to the suspension there. So effectively you can change the digression of the sway bar through that rocker system, changing the push rod lengths or the drop link length to alter how quick and slow the bar rate or the wheel rate of the sway bar changes through body roll. So you'll notice straight away on this car it has adjustable blades at both sides, and it's used through 2 cables. So you might see in car from previous years the drivers sort of wind in a cable. Basically what that does is change this blade and that blade at the same time, so there's no fixed blade as such. So it's more finite adjustment, but gives you almost a bigger range of adjustment as well. And if we check out the rear roll bar on the Car of the Future car, you notice the rear roll bar is mounted quite high. It actually runs through the boot, mounted to the top of the chassis. It's got a drop link that comes down right onto the lower arm there, and that's how the sway bar works, with adjustable blades at both sides. Again, driven through the cable and giving you adjustment on both blades, so bigger range in this rocket as well. Over on the 1993 car, you notice straight away the rear anti-roll bar is mounted to the diff, and the drop links are mounted to the chassis on the inside of the chassis rails. And then the actual bar adjustment, the blade adjustment I should say, comes from the leverage point and manually unbolting that hole and moving it to another hole. So the further out you go, the softer the bar, and the further in you go at this point here, the stiffer the bar. Or there's other changes you can make, of course, by moving or changing the tube I should say, so going to a bigger tube or a smaller tube, but that's how it was back in 1993. And the front sway bar on the 1993 car uses the factory pickup points on the chassis rail, and again just uses that blade system, very, very similar if not the same to the rear, where the adjustment comes from the leverage point of the bolt. So it's currently on the full soft setting, and the oil cooler actually mounts over the top of the sway bar loosely so it doesn't cause any binding, and that's how the sway bar works on the old rockets. Okay, quick look under the 94 car, which is actually the first car to get a cockpit adjustable sway bar. You notice it's got the fixed blade on one side and then the first of the blades on this side. So it's very, very similar to the 2003 car, and the cable runs down across the back, and when you move the cockpit adjuster, it just swings off the blade here and gives you your adjustment. Well, that was a short, sharp episode on how the anti-roll bar blades work. I hope it was easy to understand and you might have picked up a thing or two. We look forward to bringing you more and more episodes in the future. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Jump on perkinsengineering.com.au. We've got the online store there. You never know what's going to pop up for sale. But again, thanks for all the support. We look forward to bringing you more and more episodes this year. Cheers.